here today, and I've got another unboxing from Colt. So last time I made a video that talked about Colt, I was telling you why. I am going to hold off and wait till later development is done on the Colt King Cobra. However, one of their other new offerings in the revolver line, which came out first, is the Colt Cobra, not the King Cobra. And we're going to talk about this today. This is a Talo edition. So this is a little bit different. We'll talk about some of those differences, but you'll see, as always, when you open up a new firearm, there's always goodies in here. I took out some of the NRA materials and Youth Safety Act stuff, but I could go into the lock business for sure. No question about it. Here's a nice instruction manual about the Colt, and like I said, this is the Colt Cobra revolver. This is a snub nose, 2-inch barrel, and this shoots 38 special plus P. So stay tuned and we'll check it out. One of my favorite firearms, and maybe my favorite .357 Magnum, it varies from day to day, is this Colt Trooper Mark III. I am a big fan. I am a big fan. Have to say I'm not thrilled about a little bit of pitting on this barrel. But you take the good with the bad. This guy's from 1976. I bought it after buying a 6-inch version. I really wanted the 4. So when I heard that the Dancing Pony was coming out with something new, I was excited, but I held off for a while. I wasn't real thrilled about the original configuration, but I sure like this version. This is the Colt Cobra. This is the Talo edition. And these two are what I consider to be some fine looking firearms. Some fine looking firearms. Do they build them like they used to? I don't know. You're going to hear some criticism from some of the hardcore Colt guys that are going to say, "Hey, no, they don't. They didn't even build the Mark III like they used to. It had MIM parts in it. Oh my God." Well, this thing has MIM parts in it too. So does pretty much everything these days. For some guys, that's a dirty word. For me, it's not. For me, it is not. For those of you that watched my video about why I'm not going to get the Colt King Cobra, the new version, a lot of it has to do with the lack of adjustable sights on the rear, which are important to me. Also, the fact that it was a 3-inch barrel, which I just don't like a lot. You go up to 4, and now we're talking. 3's just not a size I like a lot. I hear they may be coming out with the 4-inch barrel. If and when they do, I will be interested. But if we're just going to use a 3, then let's get this down to something that's the size of something I can carry, a coat pocket, pants pocket, whatever. And that would be a 2-inch snubby. The original version of this that came out, I don't mean the original Colt Cobra, I mean the original new version, did not impress me as much as this one does. And I waited about a year until guys could give honest feedback to make my choice. When I saw the version I wanted for the price I wanted, now it's time to go. Okay, one of the first things I just want to point out, this does have quite the bulbous type set of grips or stocks on here. I prefer wooden to rubber. The standard Colt comes with the Hogue rubberized style grips. I think you've seen enough in my particular videos to know that that's just not something I really like. I do like a nice solid wood grip. Some people complain about that hurting their hands. It's never been a problem for me. Just a few things to point out about this Colt trigger. First of all, it is smooth and double action. Here you can see right here I'm staging it, and then it breaks. It's very, very smooth and predictable, which I like. One thing you are going to notice about this, though, I want you to listen real close. There's a click. There's another click, but it's not ready to be cycled again. It needs to come all the way out, and it even tells you in the manual that you need to let that trigger all the way out to reset, or it's just not going to engage. So, if you want to fire this quickly, that's great, but you can't be looking for a reset somewhere before it coming all the way back out. I saw a video where somebody was looking at the Colt and they weren't doing that, and a lot of commenters were saying, well, this thing's doesn't seem very good because I'm noticing that the cylinder's not turning every time you pull the trigger. Well, that's because the guy who made that video was not paying attention to letting that trigger all the way out. You can get away with that on some other firearms, so that is something to keep in mind. I talked about all the different things I didn't like about the Colt King Cobra from a carry perspective. The biggest being that it was a 3-inch barrel. Well, here we are at 2, so this is not like night and day, but for me, for something like this, pocket carry for sure. If I'm going to go ahead and have a fixed, what I call a gutter type sight, as opposed to an attachable, adjustable rear sight, then, you know, I'm definitely wanting to look at a snubby. But that's just me. I'm not going to pocket carry a 3-inch revolver. You might have seen my review lately talking about the Smith & Wesson K-Comp Carry, the Model 19 version from Performance Center. And that was a 3-inch barrel, but basically what it was a 2-inch barrel with an extra portion of compensator. So it was more like a 2.5-inch barrel, 2 1/4. This is a true 2-inch barrel. So we could talk about ballistics all day with 38 plus P, and that's what this takes, 38 plus P. And we can talk about ballistics all day. What do you want to do? Would you rather have 357, things like that? And for the distances and situations where you're going to use a pocket carry firearm, I think plus P is more than adequate. We're going to weigh this gun in a minute, but I'm going to tell you right now, knowing going into this, that this is a stout firearm. There's no question about it. This would be, in my opinion, too heavy for ankle carry. Pocket carry, at least for me, works out well. I'll show you in a minute that it slides real nice into the pocket holster that I use for my other snubbies, and so forth. And obviously, if you want to carry this as in the waistband, or I could see using this as some kind of a sidearm with perhaps a clip-on type of holster, something like that, something easy on, easy off. But that's what makes this the Talo edition. As we pointed out, it's got these nice wooden grips on it, and I do like those guys. This texture here, really nice, really nice. And of course, you know, aesthetically, it's got that pretty dancing pony that a lot of us like. You look at the cylinder release, and it's the Colt style. It's what's been kind of a trademark of Colts. Looking at the finish, this is bead blasted stainless steel. Bead blasted, with the exception on the Talo edition and some of the special editions that Colt makes, with the exception of the cylinder, which is a high shine. And you can see it didn't take much for me to put a fingerprint on it just there. But I think that's a really cool look. By the way, if you're interested in an all bright shine, bright stainless steel version of this firearm, you are looking at upwards of $1,200, which I think is quite a price to pay for something to be prettier. This particular version was, at least where I got this, only about 20 bucks more than the regular. But what I didn't like about the regular Colt Cobra is it had a fiber optic front sight. This has the brass bead, and it's low profile, and it's not going anywhere. And I really like this. So let's do some comparisons and talk about weighing this guy. Okay, for this portion of the video, the firearms I'm going to be working with are loaded. So you need to be aware of that. I'm going to show some very good trigger safety and discipline and so forth. But there's no point in looking at the weight of a carry arm if you don't know what it weighs when it's loaded. So this is a 6-round cylinder, which is one of the things I like. Most snubbies are 5. This is a 6-round. I've got it loaded up with some plus P ammo. And we're going to set it on the scale here, and we're going to see right off the bat that this weighs 1 pound, 12.55 ounces. So what is that? Well, 1 pound is 16. So fully loaded, this comes out to 28.5 ounces. So this is not a light little snubby. When you talk about looking at scandium and air weights and things like that, they probably weigh about half this much. So keep that in mind in your evaluation. But this is loaded with 6 rounds. Now, just for purposes of comparison, here's my everyday carry firearm, the Glock 19. It's loaded with 15 plus 1 in the chamber, and it's 1 pound, 15.3 ounces. So that comes out to basically 31.3 ounces. Okay, so that's versus 28. So, you know, there you go. I mean, you've got a difference there. 1 pound, 15 ounces. 1 pound, 12 ounces, 0.5. So it's just slightly under 3 ounces heavier than the Glock. So, you know, there's that comparison. Now, just for grins, I brought out another 38 6-shooter today, and that's the Smith & Wesson Model 10, and that's also a loaded cylinder, and you're going to see this weighs 2 pounds 5 ounces. So quite a bit heavier, 2 pounds 5 ounces. That comes out to what, 37.7 ounces? So 37.7 for that 4-inch barrel Smith & Wesson, loaded with 6 rounds, and this is 1.12. So again, this is 28. So quite a bit lighter as far as a wheel gun goes. Well, of course, you're dealing with 2 inches less a barrel as well. But when you compare it to the modern polymer, like we said, it's really not an advantage, not much of an advantage. I mean, 3 ounces matters if you're carrying it around all day. But like I said, I don't view this as a firearm that I would carry in my ankle. I just wouldn't. I would definitely want to get something lighter weight. I'm not an ankle carry guy. I've tried it. It drives me absolutely nuts. So something like this is definitely going in my pocket. And if not in my pocket, like I said, some kind of waistband holster, probably outside of the waistband, just due to the size of the cylinder. Okay, but this is a stout, definitely a stout 38. You're not going to see too many 38 snub nose that weigh more than this. So that's on the heavy end of the spectrum. So you need to be aware of that. Okay, now I'm going to show you now that this is unloaded now, and so we can play with this a little bit more safely. Just to note, for those of you not familiar with the Colts slide back. There's a little serrated nub on the end of this cylinder release latch. So instead of pushing forward like you do a Smith & Wesson, these slide back. Okay. Not really a big deal at all for me one way or the other. You can see the ejector star here, and you can see the wheel and so forth. Very nice turn. And taking a look at things like the forcing cone and Just altogether, it's pretty simple in design, but what I want to show you, if you look at, from a lockup standpoint, the key with the Colt is whether or not this has movement when you have the trigger engaged, and there should be none. So if you got the hammer back, the trigger pulled down, I can't, with the hammer forward and the trigger depressed, I can't move this at all. No end shake at all, and no movement. If you compare that to this old Smith, you'll see that you do have some movement. Not any end shake, but you do have some wiggle, okay? But that's typical for a Smith. It's not, and it's okay, it's part of the design. Not so much for a Colt. So if you have a Colt that's sloppy in that scenario, it's probably on its way to going out of time. And I know I've got one right now that fits that bill. But this locks up nice and tight, which we like. In terms of the trigger, like I said, from the standpoint of making this operate, here I'm going to show you. I pulled the trigger, and it's come out, and I felt a click, and you think, okay, time to... No, it's not time for the next round. You pull it out, you let it out a little bit, and that's not enough. And if you just let it out 2/3 of the way, it's not going to turn. You got to let it all the way out. And then we're talking about having success there. And guys, this is a buttery smooth trigger in single action. Very smooth, but what's so impressive about this to me is the double action pull. Just got to remember to let that trigger all the way out. That's just the way it is. So if you have some bad habits with other firearms that will let you get away with that, not so much the case here. So again, if you want to compare to this Smith & Wesson 38, I don't have to let it go all the way out to advance the cylinder. Mentioned too that this opens differently, and you guys probably mostly know this, but here you have the latch moves forward to open the cylinder. One of the things I do want to highlight for you is look at this channel, which basically runs the length of the top of the frame, and this is what comprises your rear sight. Fairly common in revolvers since their inception, but I want you to look at how deep this is leading up to your brass bead on your front sight. Kind of looking at them side by side again. Just a little bit easier to pick up with this Colt than this more traditional sight picture you see on the Smith & Wesson Model 10. Huge difference? I don't know. I think the bigger difference is this brass bead on the front sight, which I didn't like the fiber optic, but I do like the brass. Another thing I mentioned is that I'd show you my pocket holster. This is a Blackhawk size 4, and I just picked it out because it looked the right size. This is what I've used for carrying snubs for a while now, and they all fit in there. All 2-inch snubs I've carried. Got a little bit of pocket lint on it, but as you can see, it does what you want a pocket holster to do. Covers up the trigger and the hammer, fits in your pocket, and you can easily get your firearm out of there and do what you need to do. Looking back at the workings of this does have a transfer bar, and you see it come up right there in front of the frame-mounted hammer. This is going to prevent the firearm from going off from just dropping it. Also, it's not going to fire unless you have the trigger depressed. I don't know if we can get a good view of that, but if you look in, I've got the trigger depressed, and there's the firing pin right there. So if that trigger's not depressed, it's not going to come out. So just a quick idea of what the actual safety is on this. But this is a proven system. Colt's been using this kind of transfer bar system for quite a while. I've got a 1975 Colt Trooper Mark III that has this. So at least that long. It's a proven system, like I said. The firing pin is mounted to the frame. I know some guys do prefer to have the firing pin integral to the hammer, such as this. But they all work, so I haven't had a problem with that. So, you know, as you can see, you've got a what I consider to be a very nice, kind of a classic look. It's a little bit different, you know, kind of a little bit of a two-tone, I guess. They also make a two-tone version of this with a black cylinder, and I'll put up some different pictures of the versions of this that are out at the end of this video. But you know, outside of being a little bit heavy, this is, I think, a great firearm if you're going to fire it a lot at the range for fun, which typically I would not with a snub nose, but this one I probably will, just because the trigger's so nice. Having a heavier frame for shooting the hot 38 plus Ps is always a good thing. I know on some of those smaller scandium and airweight type frames, they're rated for plus P, but when you shoot plus P out of them, it definitely stings the hand. So this is something that I've been looking at for a while. I've heard people raving about the trigger, and just decided, you know what, let's go for it. Let's go for it. I already told you why I wasn't going to get the King Cobra. Now I may change my mind on that as they come out with later versions which meet the requirements I've set forth. But for a snubby, I think what Colt has here is a real winner. And you know, from a price standpoint, yeah, you can definitely get a Smith & Wesson 637, something like that, for cheaper. For $200 or $300 cheaper, but you can also spend $200 or $300 more and get a snub nose from Kimber. So it all depends on your tastes and what you want to do. I, for one, am hoping that Colt will succeed in firearms development. I just think that it's good for everybody. It's good for competition, for Smith & Wesson to have them step their game up from a quality control standpoint. It gives more choices to the shooters. I'd love to see revolvers make a comeback. I promised you some looks at different versions. This is the original new Colt Cobra. This is what's called the Night Cobra, which is, as you can see, all black, has a bobbed hammer. This is called the Cobra TT, which has the dark cylinder, different wood grips. The Talo version, the one I'm showing you today, is also known as the Cobra Classic. And this is that bright version I told you about that goes for north of $1,200. I really like this Talo edition, a lot better than their standard offering, and just depends on what you're looking for. But this is a beautiful firearm, and we're looking forward to shooting it. Of course, we'll give you a full range report here in the next few days. So this is Dr. Drake 63. Want to thank you for watching today. Always happy when we can take a look at the dancing pony. So long till next time.